Hello and welcome to Shared Spaces with Quida, Chap, and Dayson. Quida is on her way. However, we have two guests with us today from I've met from doing community work in Southeast Baltimore, specifically but not exclusively for the Latino community. These are my friends and my sisters in the community, Danitza Leon and Blanca. I won't attempt to pronounce your last name, but if we can.
Tapawasco.
Tapawasco. I'm working on it. I'm working on my Spanish. Los niños me están enseñando español, aprendiendo. So forgive me if I, butcher stuff. Miss Blanca, if you want to introduce yourself first, please.
Sure. My name is Blanca Tapawasco, and I have lived in Southeast Baltimore for over 15 years. I have volunteered in local and private schools, and have worked in local and private schools. Education is definitely something that I have a high priority, and it's a pleasure to be with you, Danitza, as well, Leon, and I look forward to a great conversation tonight.
All right. Thank you. Danitza, want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes. Hi, thank you for the invitation. My name is what you like share that my partners.
Oh, Danitza, you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I was saying, my name is Danitza Leon. I am from Bolivia, and I was living here for almost 10 years. And I work doing volunteer in my nonprofit organization with my other two, friends. And, yeah, to explain more about the organization, other things, later.
All right. And thank you guys for being on today. Thank you for doing a show in English for me. I know I got to get to the point where I can join you guys on a program where we can do it in Spanish and share as well. I know Mr. Eric has offered to do something for us as well when we get things going. So I had you guys on the show today. Just being transparent, we have a lot of guests on the show from the community, mostly African American, because Baltimore is majority a black city, and there is a underserved and kind of community in the Latino community, I feel from my experience, and you guys are kind of here to maybe check me in my experience or just share what's going on in our community and kind of things that get overlooked. And I'd like to start the conversation by sharing my experience as, even though I grew up in Baltimore, I'm a white guy from Northeast. And so I do have certain privileges. I am to an extent monumentally naive as far as like when COVID hit, me being a chaplain in Southeast Baltimore and having some relationships through the rec center and through volunteering at the schools and through juvie a little bit. I didn't really see a lot of our Latino kids getting locked up per se where I was at or when I was serving. But when COVID hit, kids came to me and said, "Man, I haven't eaten in like 2 days, Mr. Chap." And I was like, and the kids call me Mr. Chap, and kind of lost in translation, I think, because chaplain is the title, but I let them go with that. So a lot of the kids in Southeast would call me Mr. Chap, but they were sharing like, "I haven't eaten in 2 days, and and we're not working this and that." And so that kind of spawned us to start paying attention to what's going on a little closer. And what I discovered once we started getting like partners like yourself, I know you guys participated, Miss Blanca. I don't think I knew you yet, but I'm sure you would have if I called you. And we just started getting groceries for people. And I discovered something that I was just, like I said, naive to the nuances, was like my families that I serve in Southeast were not, if they were not documented, regardless if they were Latino, Chinese, African, they were not getting the unemployment that everybody was getting, which was like an incredible check. I think they were getting $600 extra a week, which is more than I got in unemployment on a regular check, right? I think I got like 400. So there was that. There were stimulus checks. There was food stamps being given out without question, and all of those things proliferating from documentation that a lot of our families didn't have. So where people were struggling, but they were still kind of okay, a lot of families in Southeast Baltimore were not. So it kind of raised a lot of questions. And when we started to call around the agencies and we started calling around to Office of Immigration as people are getting evicted and squeezed and threatened by landlords saying, if you don't pay, I'm going to turn you into ICE, and families were scared, not understanding that the courts were closed. And so there wasn't really evictions happening, but they were so scared to be deported under the threat of these landlords in Southeast. And I wish I knew their names because I would give them to you. But in some cases, we had to call the Office of Homelessness and Office of Housing and Office of Immigration. And what we found was all of these offices did a whole lot of passing the buck and a whole lot of nothing. And not to discredit anyone, but the way our system is set up, it is just set up to be so cumbersome that a family, if they're experiencing homelessness, might not get served by the proper resources for a good 6 to 8 months because of how the system is set up. So what I found was we would start turning inward to each other in the community, and the community really pulled together. There's people like, not on the show tonight, Ms. Janet Arce, Cesar Romero, who's been a guest on here before, Ms. Danitza, Ms. Glenda, and there's just so many partners, Ms. Leo, so many partners and good partners in this community that I think go unrecognized for the work they do because no one's paying attention to the work that's happening or the needs that are happening in our community. So all that being said, you guys are the experts. I'm the new guy on the scene, and I am an ally, right? Because I don't want to steal the mic from you guys. It's a message that I'm sure you need to share. I can't tell your story, but I can say I'm here to help, and we're here to listen and figure out how we can do things better.
I definitely would want to address the food issue. Also, I am a bilingual individual, as you know, David and Danitza. Yo soy originalmente del Salvador, so I'm originally from El Salvador. I am bilingual, and even for our family, we found that the PEBT program, which is under the Maryland State Department of Social Services, the PEBT program. Oh, shall we give a moment for Quida to introduce herself?
Yes,
Sure,
thank
go ahead.
you. Hello. I am Quida Shancy, the founder and director of Baltimore Homes, and we build micro shelters and tiny homes for people who are experiencing homelessness. And since the pandemic, we've really been focusing on food distribution, which is where I believe I may have met Ms. Danitza before, and helped to load up a van and unload in the sweltering heat. But that's what we do if the community needs it. So what were you all talking about? I don't want to interrupt. What were we talking about?
Not at all. Quida, we were addressing the need of food for the communities, and I was just I was sharing that even our own family experience with the PEBT program, which is under the Maryland State Department of Health and Human Services. Let me just say it's under the state of Maryland. That there are cards that were assigned to students even back in 2019, and they are assigned to students that are enrolled in Baltimore City Public School. So if a student qualifies for a reduced or a free lunch, they would get a black and white printed card. Unfortunately, many of them never got to families. That also impacted. I know that David mentioned already that distributions became, it was just, it really is small to more when it comes to a force unit. The need was there. People got to the need. The PEBT cards are still not getting to folks. They're either missing in action or getting actually a family to connect to a live representative by calling the number. That also was a challenge. And so these cards, which could help, in other words, anything that can help can be an insulator, kind of like a layer of insulation. However, when the language might be a barrier, that card was lost in the shuffle of mail. The need was still existent, and then families. I'm bilingual, and it's now September 2021. We still haven't gotten our card 18 months later.
Yeah.
I have called, I did an inquiry form. And so that is something that happened both to English and all other language speakers. And that really impacted. I needed to call the Y, but I learned about the why through the high school with the counselor. So you see, even someone who knows a little bit about just making a call, I didn't even know until the counselor said to me, "Do you need food?" I said, "Yes, I do. I lost my job February 28th of 2019, did not work for another year. Did not work." And so you can imagine the impact of someone who is not bilingual, who is not maybe versed, or who is not connected with some resource. It was like being in a desert and waiting for rain to come.
Right. And I think the worst part about what you're saying is that you were fully equipped to be eligible and fully equipped to complete the paperwork, and yet and still you didn't benefit from this particular thing that should be readily available to people. And I don't think that people understand that just because something is available doesn't mean that everyone will get it and that everyone qualifies for it. I've been experiencing that with, now that there's a hotel voucher program, people are less willing to help people who are unhoused, but not everybody qualifies for that, so, and then to your point, not everyone has ID or is eligible or is sufficient to qualify for said program. But you yourself have been through a program where you're like, I did all the paperwork. Here's all my documentation. And over a year later, I'm still suffering from whatever it is that I applied for, for the need that you were supposed to fill. So in the meantime, you've been working with the YMCA or communicating with the Y, working with their resources. You were able to get back to work a year afterward. So how are you doing now? And what is it that you all are doing right now to get through?
Well, I bring this up that way families, anyone seeing live, anyone seeing the replay, I should say, they can first, this is the solution. Sometimes you're going to say, well, let's bring the solution. But a solution is sometimes often found after the challenge has been exposed, revealed. What I would say is to ensure, because finally, a year and a half later, a call came in. It was a Saturday afternoon or so, and it was like from an odd number. The Maryland State Department was calling, saying that, did you get your card? Not yet. They said, you need to call. This is what I would say is a solution for all parents who are still either waiting and do not know what the next year will hold as far as qualifying for food. This is for all parents with students in Baltimore City Public School System. The PEBT program is a state program, and they must complete a form. This is from the call that I got a year and a half later. They must complete a form for the reduced or free lunch program. That is a yearly form. Who provides the form? The school. The school provides the form to the parents within a week. And the form is provided within a week of starting school. We've been in session for 1 week. That form is to be completed and turned back in to confirm the eligibility of free or reduced lunch. That is so important because these PEBT cards have balances. So Quida, Danitza, and David realized and told me, even though I don't have the card, there's a balance there of hundreds of dollars to buy food, but you cannot buy the food unless you can't make a purchase without a card. So there is, please make sure that as parents or legal guardians, check with your school for the form for the reduced and or free lunch form, turn it in, because this is a form that must be done every year. This is unrelated to the PEBT card. That has a balance or never got to you, or a replacement needs to be ordered. If the form is not completed, guess what? They're going to be cut off of that. That is vitally important because a food resource is for our well-being, as well as helping the financial stability of a family, and also making connections with others in the in case those needs are not adequately or completely met.
And the PEBT card is a pandemic EBT card, right? Let me ask you: is it all the schools that should have them, or is it like Title I schools? Do you know?
All the community schools.
Okay.
So all community schools includes those who are Title I, but also
But
are
not exclusively.
considered community schools.
Okay.
From my understanding, that includes charter schools, because the program is for the reduced and free lunch based on the qualifications of the income of the family.
Understood.
Yeah. But I have a problem.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry, I have that problem with my mom's. It was hard to call or have information. It was hard to call or have information about this card. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes. It
Can
is
you hear
hard.
me?
Yes.
Hello. Oh my God.
Although your screen is frozen, we can hear you just fine. And now you're unfrozen.
Okay, sorry. I don't know. But I was saying I have the same problem the last year, because many moms it was asking about this card. It was like hard to call some, or have the information. It's like Blanca said, like we need to explain, or I don't know what, or have the city, the moms need for apply, or I don't
What? It is hard because you have to constantly follow up. You almost have to have a full-time advocate
know.
for each family. And there's people out here that do that. There's I know Jaconda Smith with Tag. I know Nicole Mosby Taylor are two community family advocates that I often turn families to, because they're pretty fierce and relentless, and they wear agencies down till the agencies do what they're supposed to do. But we shouldn't have to we shouldn't have to send people out to bully the agencies for agencies to do what they are supposed to do in the first place, because it becomes a full-time job almost. I know a lot of stuff even in my own house, working through certain difficulties with different things, like if you don't, when it has to do with the IRS or the child support or the anything with the government, you have to call, and it's like, could you guys just do your job? But working for the city, I can't. I'm not saying this is the opinion of the city. I have to say that before I say this. Is that working for the city, I see how cumbersome the process is, and it just needs to change, because people struggle. People even with the explosions over in Northwest last year, there was families that were displaced and had nowhere to live, that were just now moving into homes, and that was a long time ago, almost 12 months ago. So yeah, and on top of that, I feel like, and this is just my opinion, and I could be wrong, but a lot of times, with the families that we see in the Southeast, they get discouraged because a lot of families don't speak English. They get discouraged because you like, imagine for us, Quida, or people watching, like, imagine if we went to Panama or Bolivia or Venezuela, somewhere. Let's say we went to a whole other country. We don't speak the language. We're struggling. Like, who do you reach out to? Who do you call, right? And you get so discouraged with the conversations if you're not familiar with anything, and you're new to the country, that it's real easy to just walk away from it and try to figure something else out. But that's not how we treat people, right? So I'm blessed to have people like Danitza who will step up, and Blanca who will step up for families who are struggling. And I think we need to focus on how to engage the community more with each other. A long time ago, not a long time ago, but a couple years ago, I was reading this book, and I was surprised. I grew up in Baltimore, And I was surprised to read in this book that Baltimore was better off when it was segregated. And the reason this statement was made in this book was because the government didn't care about people of color as long as they stayed in their lane. And what happened was they also didn't help people of color, but people helped themselves. People people like, the black, so being a white guy growing up, a lot of times I was taught in school or from other white family members, like the Black Panthers were a militant group, they're terrorists, they're this and that. But then when you grow up and you do research, you find that no, they were having schools and daycares, and they were feeding people, and they were doing stuff that we do today in the community, but they didn't write the history books. So, groups like that make a stand get criminalized real quickly, or if you're not part of the status quo, or you're doing the government's job for them, then they're gonna find a way to step in and discredit you and take the credit, or shut you down before you get started. And it's a shame because people suffer, right? Those are just my thoughts. I see a lot of
Chap, I totally agree. And you know that I often say that there's power in poverty. Like, there's power in being able to control a whole population or a whole group of people. So the incentive to help us is low in that way. And this system, unfortunately, is layered in so many different ways, and each layer has its own problems. So like you said, Blanca, after you were able to get one step, it was like, oh no, now there's this other hurdle that you have to jump through. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me that before? Because I would have already filled out that form if that's what was holding things up, or if that was the next part of the process, and you still had to do the other paperwork. Like, I can do multiple things at once. Why not just give me the whole daggone process? And no one thinks to just do that, because Blanca wouldn't have needed a full-time advocate. She could have been her own, and she would have just did the package because that's what was required.
And let me say this too. I think part of serving the families better is getting them to have some skin in the game and building a better community with each other. A lot of people, they put the blinders on when they leave the house. They go to the car, go to work, come back, and then go in the house. They don't look left or right. You don't look around you. And these women are here on the show tonight. Like Miss Danitza has, I've seen her out in the cold last November in front of the school, in the dark, in the cold, with her dance group, just building community, building relationships, teaching the girls traditional Spanish dance. And so obviously there's some mentorship there, and there's community building. And Blanca has been working with, I know she's been working with myself and some people in the community to start a bilingual classroom where, we can all learn English and Spanish together in the same classroom, kind of learning together, struggling together, but building the relationships as we do it, I think, is really different from, going to CCBC and me sitting in the Spanish class learning Spanish, and some of the parents going to to an English class or a ESOL class learning English. We do it together. That's gonna build a better relationship for everyone, right? These women are trying to do that, and I'm here to tell you that the city doesn't want, for whatever reason or excuse they give us, the city closes more doors than it opens, and it doesn't make sense to me, to the point where I'm at the point where we just go over Cesar's.
Chap, don't do that. Don't try to figure out the city's problems.
So that's my thing.
You crazy.
Yeah, so that's my thing.
Crazy, Chap. Don't do it.
We could go over Cesar's and do the classes, right? We could go over to the church, Our Lady Fatima, with Hermana Carolina, and say, hey, can we use some space to do the dance group or the dance classes or community dance class? Like the things that we would like to do in spaces that are supposed to be or labeled community aren't really happening like they say they are. So my thing is, let's start turning towards each other in the community to find different ways to birth the ideas that we're having and nurture them and build them up. And then the city's going to come to us and be like, hey, can you guys do that over here? And we can just, no, we're good. Like, that time has passed,
May I mention something about the conversation we had in the connection? I just met David, not even 2 weeks ago. It's going to be, it's 2.5 weeks ago we met. We met at an event, and this is how connection is. I have been living here in Southeast for in the area of Highlandtown, Patterson Park for 15 years. There's a nonprofit which I volunteered sporadically, and now I'm actually in AmeriCorps Vista. So I am now 1 year committed to the work of that they do, which is tutoring and mentoring. And so between having an open house at John Rura, meeting David, we met the next day. We met the next day and discussed what would it look like, what would it mean, and how would it impact a community of residents to be bilingual, to learn in the same way that we learned our first language. We first train the ear, obviously, and then that's what I do. I have private tutoring sessions with children and adults. And I also have the privilege to teach some and tutor some students who are in the public school who are several grades below. They know English, they know how to read, but they're not at grade level. And so the literacy, and I wanted to say that to and share with Quida, and Danitza can I'm sure agree, that something can be translated into another language, but the literacy for the person may not be there. They may not even be able to read that which is in English, let alone with another language. It's very great. It's a wonderful tool to be bilingual, a wonderful way to get your correspondence and message bilingual, but also the audience may not have the literacy. They're not capable of reading yet. You know, I always ask my kids to finish, whether they're my students, my own, you're not able to do, put in the blank yet. And so the idea of providing bilingual for adults, bilingual program, that is, if you want to learn Spanish, you would be an adult learning Spanish along with those who are learning English. And you might say, well, isn't that going to be a little bit confusing? Well, they're training their ear while you are learning, and then it does a switch. They're training their ear while you are learning. And so hopefully that will come to fruition. A proposal has been put in place, and we will see what the response is. But the idea of working, meeting, following up, and now perhaps this could be, again, a novel idea to have adults learning together, because there's not a pen and paper. No one is, even technologies has taught us that. No one is learning technology by pen and paper. We must first be trained to do whatever skill that is, train what to do and how to do it in order for us to teach to someone, to be the who teaches someone else.
There's two comments I have on what you just spoke about, and one is that a lot of the things we do, when I asked to have like a flyer translated in Spanish, and not by any means am I saying that my families that I engage in are uneducated, because they are very smart. They're survivors. They thrive in and I have nothing but love and respect for all of my families that I serve. But what Ms. Blanca pointed out to me, which I was unaware of because of the language barrier in the first place, is that I can print stuff out in Spanish, but some of the family members that came here, the adults in the family and the children, but the adults as well, are unable to read the literature. She's talking about the literacy, and I was unaware of that. And it's not everybody. We're not speaking for everybody, but we are speaking for a large group of parents who may not be able to read in Spanish. So if I'm translating stuff and just handing it to them, it's not helpful. And unless I speak the language to be able to communicate that with them, I'm not going to find that out. And of course, people are always embarrassed to admit if they can't read, right? In our culture anyway, people are ashamed of that, and they figure it out and fake it, until they get through high school, sadly, or further. The other comment is that Director Moore, if you're watching, Zeke, Josh, you guys are watching this. The agency, Parks and Recs agency, has been looking for some kind of training for staff, specifically, and I'm sure the other agencies as well. And the councilman Zeke Antonio Glover, he's over Armstead Gardens. You guys can. Let's get this class happening. Let's do what it takes to get this class happening, because you can send your staff. Captain Boyd at Southeast. You can send your police officers over who are not bilingual. The fire department, the staff at Bayview, just first responders in the community. People in the agencies. BCRP wants something to happen where they can teach their staff English and Spanish, right? And we keep coming up with all these ideas, and they keep saying no. So it doesn't make sense. You want this, we have solution, you say no. We think of something else, we have the solution, and the whole time that we spin our wheels having these back and forth, the community is still suffering because we're not able to break down certain barriers. And we do it like I do a hell of a job, but we can do better. You know what I mean? We can do better if we can equip our people better. So for all those guys listening who have the power to pull the trigger and make this happen, please call me. Y'all have my number. I'll give you Blanca's number, like, Miss Danitza as well. Like, whoever you guys need to talk to make it happen, we can put it together. But I think at a very basic level, we can start by bridging the bilingual barrier together.
I have to say, sometimes it's sad, but because our kids here, they don't want to speak, but like me, very well English. I understand more. And I am very glad.
Benita, you're still breaking up. We can't understand what you're saying.
Oh my God.
Real quick, while she fixes her mic, Ronald says, do you have any information related to Baltimore County Public Schools? Ronald, I'll share that I do not. I focus hard on the city. So I personally do not. So I can't speak to that.
Yeah. Now, can you hear me better?
A little bit better.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I don't have very much information about Baltimore County either. But I know that in most county schools, they have a few school counselors that might be able to direct you to some resources in that area. And then Blanca mentioned that there is an organization called Bridging the Bilingual Barriers, and they have a program.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was saying that Bridging the Bilingual Barriers is a great name for a program. When David said that, it really made me think, wow, what an awesome name for a program. For the individual who asked about Baltimore County Public Schools, they have a welcome center. If you Google Baltimore County Public Schools Welcome Center, they have a center that is in the northeast part, and that welcomes all families of all languages and cultures. And it's the Welcome Center for Baltimore County Public Schools. I know the person who directs, or one of the individuals, I should say, that is a staff. That's how I know about that Welcome Center. That may be a good start. I'm not quite sure specifically what they're looking for when they asked. So that may be a good start, the Welcome Center. And then if they're looking, say, for a school near them, if they're looking for the zone school, they do have a school locator under the main website, Baltimore County Public Schools. You can actually do a search on the search bar for school locator. So maybe a little bit more specific. We don't have all the answers, but I just happened to look up that this past week for someone, the school locator, and I do know a staff member that works at the Welcome Center for Baltimore County Public Schools.
All right, Denise, so let's try it again. Can we hear you?
I hope so.
Okay.
Is better? Okay, cool. Sorry. I was saying, like, that point of Blanca, but I had sometimes that because our organization works with, teenagers, moms, and these families who, when you hear the kids, they don't speak Spanish. Sometimes, oh, they are something, and they don't feel confident to speak with others. And the moms, parents, they don't want to try it because they don't feel confident. And they don't have this help, And for example, I am, shy to speak sometimes. Well, I was talking, a couple of weeks ago with Chap, and the same thing happened in our community. And it would be great if we have more programs, more help in the community, like volunteers, help, this. Okay, I have this hour to help to teach English, or I don't know, something to do, because I am very, when sometimes I'm trying, well, some people have more information. And for me, I because I'm trying to do my best. I feel, thinking this, and they want to be better, but they don't have help. And they want, they want to do a program at some place for that thing, for learn, share their things. I don't know if you.
So I think I heard most or some of what you were saying. And so if I can repeat some of it, I know you were saying that you think it would be great for a specific place for people to be able to go to benefit from these programs, which makes me think of like the community centers, like are the rec centers something that could house these types of programs, or is
They absolutely could, but
Yeah, because sometimes we have the place, but I don't know what is law. Like Mr. Chap was saying, it's like the idea is there, but it's not going to, because we don't have the help we need.
yeah, so like always, it's funding. Go ahead, Blanca. Nope.
Oh, I was wondering if when she said that the families, I think I heard the families do not have a place for the children. If childcare, I have found this to be true with community association meetings. If a family, even a single parent, would like to attend, you could have all of the willingness. You could be one of the most, you could have the greatest idea to bring to the forefront. But if childcare is unfortunately not there to support you attending, that also, so again, it's about bridging all of those. And I wouldn't say there's a challenge. Here's a parents that may want to attend a class, but they have to consider about the children too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think that David mentioned earlier, to have that skin in the game. It's really and it may start with 4, like this group, and that these 4, I'm sure each of us knows 100 people, including ourselves, 100 people that could benefit from a program that we ourselves either know about, we have promoted on our own, or we have received some benefit from. So the skin in the game is to really have a forum of some type in small pockets, pods. This is what a homeschool group does. I'm a homeschool mom. People might say, wow, you're a homeschool mom, and here, what's going on with Baltimore City Public Schools? Do you have something that is not working for you? Well, I have one that's advanced. He's 2 grades above. So he's 8 years old in 4th grade. I have one that is in 8th grade who's 3 grades below. So that's a challenge for him to catch up. And I have one in high school and public school. So I say this only to say to you that sometimes the child care and the need of that family is specific, and we have to meet, not we, I should say, the family looks for a need to be met. If they want to attend a meeting and they don't have child care, that pretty much kind of like the meeting is non-existent for them.
Well,
If you do have, go ahead.
No, I just want to comment on that. Bayview community meetings are at the police precinct, of which I am present and willing to do childcare for free while I'm there because I'm there. I'm certified, background check. I work with kids. So, and then secondly, every 3rd Wednesday of the month at Mora Crossman Rec Center at 701 South Rapala. It's also John Royal Elementary School, PS 228. At 7 p.m. on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, they have the Greektown Association. And we do need more of our Familia Latino to show up because none of us do. None of us. And like the only guy at the Bayview is Cesar because he is the president. And so you have at the Greektown Association, same thing. We don't see any Latino families. And so our problems are not being translated. In fact, with us not being there, we become part of the problem. The problems the rest of the community is having, right? They'll say, oh, well, the playground is trashed, and we always see the Latino families over there. They don't clean up, and this and that. So we need to show up to the meetings. We need to say, this is what is happening. This is what we need. It's like I'm telling you, if we show up, they can't ignore us, but we need to show up. And at the rec center, again, we hold them at the rec center at 7 p.m. So, we do the COVID checks when people come in, and I'm available. If you bring your kids, there is space for them to spread out safely, and there is activities we can have them do while the meeting is happening. We can help with that as needed. We just need you guys to show up.
I believe that if it is, if in advance, I'm thinking even of a rotating schedule. In advance, we have those daycare workers and we announce that childcare is available. And then the next step, like you said, David, we want to be part of the solution and not add to the perception that is incorrect. And that is, there's a perception that's incorrect. However, if we have the people lined up for the childcare, if it is shared, the childcare is available, and then we follow up by making those calls to people are just so busy. So also there's some depredation, of course, because we're still in a pandemic mode. People want to, maybe they don't know how many people will be there. They don't want to be in a crowded space, or they want to make sure that the protocols are being followed. And so with those, just 3 factors, let alone, maybe something happened or car broke down and all of a sudden, can't, all those types of things that can happen. But if we have a roster set up, I'm also cleared, background check, federal, because of the work I do. And that if we have a roster, if we have the people, if we have people notified that there is childcare, we follow up. We probably listen. One more family is better than no families. One family, and then have meeting notes. Someone can take the notes, and it can't fall on one person. Not one person can do 10 things, but 10 people can do one thing each. And somebody could take the notes. Maybe someone who's bilingual can translate them. But this is going to really take an effort And Danitza wanted to mention real quick about not having confidence. When we speak, there's master classes, right? Quida and David and Danitza, you may know, there are master classes for public speaking. It is a skill, but it's like a muscle. We must work it. We must, kind of like, it's, and I say you must, as in I encourage you and everyone listening, we must lift those weights up to get that muscle, to speak more confidently, maybe be a better connector or connect, excuse me, be a better liaison in your community by connecting with others. Because David, something you said really hit me, and we could hear it 100 times, but one time is that people are still waiting and suffering. In other words, they're waiting. So the waiting, if we see this as, can we help the ones that are waiting to get waited on, get waited and served, and get what they need? Once I was in great need. I knew absolutely no English. I couldn't tell you today is Monday. I couldn't tell you my birthday is this Friday, which it is. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what 1 or number 5 was, or if 5 was that 50. I didn't know how to tell you that 10 times 10 is 100. Nothing. But I had 2 people who invested their life in me, my parents, and they adopted me. They adopted this scrawny little person from El Salvador, from a war-torn country. Who knows what could have happened to me? So those 2 people, we have 4 here. 4 people here can invest in 1, and that 1 could invest in 4, and maybe those 4 all of a sudden. And I'm not talking about network marketing or anything like that. I have nothing against network marketing, but network marketing has a model where 1 reaches that 1 that could potentially reach many. So I encourage everyone listening that whatever talent you have, whatever time that you have, and whatever you put your treasure on, that investment is going to pay. I can't even put a number to the fold. It will be incredible. Baltimore has been waiting for people like us to be servant and then be servant makers. There is no one greater. There's no one less. I talked to David about that when I first met him, that I don't see myself as better, and I don't see myself as less. I see myself as level. I see myself that I have the ability, the capability, and I have the grit. And yes, I'll do sweat equity, and I will do what it takes, but I won't say I can't do this for the betterment of the whole, because too many people invested in me. So everyone have that confidence, have the ability to say, what can I do? That's the one thing I can do that can help 10, because I can't do 10 things at one time.
That's a mic drop. That's good. Those are good thoughts. Wow. And real quick, I'll say that I've shared before here and on some town halls for education with the city is that, like you said, 4 people pour into 1 person. Our native people, right, North American or South American, right, El Salvador or Native American, North American, our elders, you would have 40 elders maybe in a village or a clan, and they would pour into 1 child at a time and allow the child to discover their truths, right? And so there's value in that. And even though you're pouring into 1 child at a time, and maybe 20, 30, 40 pouring into 1 child at a time, you're pouring into children as they come up. It's not just like just that child and that's it. You're one and done. You continually do it. And that's, that's how you proliferate change. Things like I don't know if I ever told you this, Blanca, but we did a camp up until the new commissioner changed things. Commissioner Harrison changed things, and it wasn't because of COVID. It was shut down before COVID was a thing. But we used to do this camp with the police where former Chief Melvin Russell, he did this camp where he'd take 25 boys and 25 girls who were labeled the worst in the community, but they're just kids. They made poor decisions, or they had less than great engagements with the police and school police. So we take kids, high risk kids, out to camp for a week in the summer, away from the city, unplugged from technology. Overnight camp where kids from the hood are waking up to a different surroundings. They're getting in boats. They're learning how to fish. They're shooting bows and arrows. They're swimming. They're building relationships for a week. And all the counselors, everybody cleaning the rooms, everybody cooking, they're all police, but you don't tell them that, right? And at the end of the week, we do a cookout. DJ comes, have a 5-star chef cooking for them, and we just had this big blowout. I still got videos on my phone from the last 2 we did. And a little shout out to Tori Rhodes because she was breaking it down with the kids. And the officers reveal themselves. They say, "Oh, Counselor of the Week, Ron Cromer," and my mans would come out in his dress blues, and the kids would be completely betrayed in an instant. But then you see them process that, but this has been my homeboy all week. Man, maybe he let me borrow his slides for the pool, or maybe he bought me some swimming trunks because I didn't have one to go swimming, or this guy taught me how to fish, right? So they were building relationships with the police before they saw the police and put the shield up over their face. They saw them as humans first. 25 kids, or 25 boys, 25 girls, 50 kids at a time. And you're not going to see, so like the officers pouring into these kids one at a time was changing lives and changing the culture in Baltimore, 50 kids at a time, once a year. And it wasn't like you saw stats of crime going down over the next 90 days in this precinct or that where they came from. You might not see, you would see a change in the person you invested in, right? And I'll tell you, 2-3 years later, these guys are community leaders, organizers. Some of them, 3 of them are at HBCUs right now on scholarship. My one-man, Big Mike, is like my go-to guy if I ever need anything. Mike, shout out to Mike Holland. If I need anything, I'm doing anything in the community, I call this guy, he shows up. Micah Tucker. I can name probably 100 kids if I go through my phone and look up all the contacts of kids that lives were changed by the camp, and now they're changing Baltimore because their lives were changed, right? So pouring into people and relationships is important, and that's really how we're going to change things. And back to the idea of like something simple like the dance program, getting the community together. I think we need a space where we can get together freely and do these positive things and proliferate community that's not attached to the government, because anything with the government it's just such a burdensome, cumbersome process to do anything. And I think if we find somewhere to build community in the community, within the community, without asking permission, without, each community should have a space like that. Some of them do, and some of them don't. And if there's somebody in Greektown or Bayview, Highlandtown, somebody listening in the southeast area who has space that wants to, engage the community and just build up the community and make our space in Southeast Baltimore better, like, please call us, contact us. Contact us through blackusa.news or bemorenews.com. The publisher has our information. He can get us the information, but we definitely need a space in the community, from the community, and not attached to the stigma of the city right now. Because and not to say necessarily intentionally talk bad about the city, it's just that it's a cumbersome system to do anything. And then the people that do finally break through and get programs running. I have a program that's supposed to be at my rec. They've been a no call, no show for like 4 weeks in a row. So how does that make my kids feel when they want to show up and do this program and learn about the engineering and STEM process involved with like building dirt bikes, and the class just doesn't show up. They don't call, they don't show up, and so I got all these kids excited for this program that doesn't show up. And then things that we do need, like Blanca, like Danitza, like Coach Tagana Duncan has a STAND mentorship program he's trying to bring to the young men in our Latino community, with Janet Arce. The things we do need, they don't let through the door. And then the people they do let through the door, a lot of times don't show up. And so it's just a bad situation. So I feel like anyone who's out there who can help us make a change and just be hospitable and host, there's a lot we can do.
So, Chap, I have a quick question.
Hope I don't get fired tomorrow.
I don't really like the term devil's advocate, but to play both sides. So you're saying that there's an issue with folks showing up and with folks who are worthy of working with these children being denied access. So is that access being denied because of an application problem? Is it a... Go ahead.
In my experience, my limited experience, it is policies are always changing. Agencies are understaffed. Or these are the things that I hear anyway. And just the process in general is cumbersome. For instance, the ongoing
bill to explain to people or to host like a class on how to properly apply for
that would be really smart. And one of the other things we can do is if in your communities, if you go to your rec center, ask if they have a rec council. If they do not, start one, because things that the employees of the agency cannot do, the rec center can do, right? I think it's an excellent idea hosting a class to teach people the process. That's brilliant. Like teach people, here's a process to get in the rec center.
He said
because like Blanca's learning.
To like teach people how to fend for themselves and then let them do that. So instead of saying Baltimore City, you don't do this, you don't do this. Now we empower people to fill out the application properly, not mess up on the financials, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I just say it's such a cumbersome process because my joke with the director every time I see him, Director Moore, the joke is I've been here since 2019. I still don't have a printer in my rec, and I've been asking for 2 years just a printer, just so I can print information, applications, documents we need to do the administrative work in our rec. And so that's always the joke. And he's always, and you know, to his credit, he always tells the people under him, like, get this, let's get this guy's director a card, give him $400, go buy a printer. He says it every time, but in 2 years it hasn't happened. And we've done and it's just the process. The process is cumbersome. As far as like getting programs in the rec, we do everything we can do, and then the buck stops because someone is on vacation or they're understaffed, and so like processing stops. It's a lot of different reasons, but there's a lot of different moving parts in this big cumbersome ship, and any one part will jam the process up for weeks, if not months. So again, I just, like I said,
and
even
all
if
I'm saying is it's worth it to the kids to try to put together something.
Smart. I like it.
The process so that if the community does have this brilliant idea that the kids are like, heck yeah, we want to come to that, then we need to figure out a way, like you said, either within the rec, now we can teach folks how to, properly do it, or outside of the rec, because somebody has called in or saw this particular tape or viewing and was like, you know what, I have space. But trying to solve the problem from all the angles, because every time we come, it's always an onion. It's never one shot and done. And we just got to know that it's Mount Everest, not the hill in somebody's backyard, and just have that mindset that we're going to get to the top, because they're not going to stop us either in the rec or outside of the rec, And
I would let me just advocate. I would love for the recs to be able to serve the communities better, and almost all the directors want the same thing. It's just cumbersome.
So wait, so repeat what you said. You said something about a rec board.
So rec council. So if you go to your local rec center, and they do not have a rec council, start one. The rec council empowers the director to do what the community needs and wants, regardless of the policies. Not regardless of the policies, but if I'm an employee of the rec and I want to do this ABC, I'm bound to the process. Like, for instance, if you wanted to raise funds for a program, it's illegal for me to sell snacks in the rec, right? Which is fine. I don't need to sell snacks in the rec for profit. But if there's a rep council present in that, officially in that rec, we can do a movie night. I can do a movie night and show movies, and the rec council can come show up and then sell consignments and then take the money and buy something for the rec. if that makes sense. You know, if there is a
No,
rec
it
council,
totally makes
yeah,
sense.
if there's a rec council, you can proliferate donations to your rec council entity and do things for your rec. Where the difference would be if somebody donates something to the rec, or if we get a grant for the rec, it goes into like the general fund, and my rec center may not actually see it ever. You know, a lot of directors say, "Don't give us money. Just here's a list of things we need." Because if you give it to me in my space, then I'm more likely to be able to keep it. And sometimes you're not. Sometimes something gets donated to one rec, and then the agency moves it to another rec, and so it's just but rec councils can gives the director more power to negotiate and navigate the system for the community for the community. That's what I've been told.
Okay, and then did you see, is there a rec council handbook or some sort of guidelines that people can look up to try to get familiar with it? And
You would start at the same place as me. I'd have to Google it because I don't know. I've only
okay,
been
so that
yeah.
sounds like 2 classes we need for the community, right? Like how to start a rec council. That
That's
may not
brilliant.
be outside of the rec. I don't
Hey,
know.
look, we
But
need to take this to David McNair because he's a guy that makes stuff happen.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
just empower people, because if people are tuning in to shared spaces, then they know that this show is for the community and they want to impact the community. They want to hear from the Blancas. They want to hear from the Denises. They want to know what's going on in the community and how they can impact change specifically, and in most cases for their children. You know what I mean? Like, Baltimore has kids all over the place, and there's not much for them to do, especially in that teenage age group. And the best thing, not the best thing, but the easiest thing for them to do is to get into trouble, and that's just not doing something productive. Do you know what I'm like?
Absolutely. During COVID,
Productive, you're in trouble, and that's
sure.
not true.
And so I'll give an example. During COVID, when the recs were closed, or they were allegedly open. I don't remember the situation at the time, but I remember it was a time when the recs were closed and we weren't doing programs. We were just giving food out, and 9 of my guys, my Latino guys in the neighborhood, stopped by the door and they're like, "Mr. Chap, can we come in and hang out, charge our phone, get some water, blah blah blah." Unfortunately, I had to say no because our policy is you've got to be in a program to be in the rec. You have to be actively in a program. So. Which is understandable for liability from their point of view. So I had to tell them no. And when I closed the rec up at 9 p.m. that evening, or 7 or whatever time it was on whatever day, they were all out front shooting craps. And not to say gambling is no longer illegal since 5 years ago because of the horseshoe and the casinos coming in. So actually, you call the police when someone's gambling, they're not going to do nothing. They might grab your dice and throw them on the roof because that's old school. But really, you have to call the liquor license board, and they come out and issue a citation to the kids if you really want to push that hard. And they're not going to do that. They're just not. So the kids they can shoot craps all they want. But we all know from our culture that other criminal activity and violence and stuff follows those craps games, right? And so when I was locking up, kids were shooting craps. I walked over to them as a police officer was walking over to them. And so because I'm a chaplain with the police officers with Southeast District, he recognized me. We talked a little bit, and then I talked to the kids, and they were okay. But they wouldn't have been in that position if we had been doing a better job, or maybe it's me. If I've been doing a better job at my rec, offering programs to get them in. So
do you need a parent's permission for, like, were they not old enough to just join a program then, or was
we didn't have programs to offer, and it was because of the COVID culture at the time, right?
Okay.
It's around the same time that I couldn't let like it was November, I think, when I met Danitza. One of my kids from the after school program, his sister is in her dance group, and they were dancing in November in the dark, in the cold, in front of the school. And I thought to myself, like, why don't I have you in my rec? And so connecting with her and having conversations and doing processes, this is almost a year later and they're still not in the rec, right? And maybe it's because I don't know how to navigate the system properly, but I'm doing everything that I'm told to do. And it's just, I can only go so far. So, and part of the problem for me was there's all these young women out in the cold, in the dark, and there had been acts of violence in that past week. There had been a shooting. There had been a stabbing down the street. So their lives are at risk just to gather and do their program because they don't have a safe place to do it. And the way the policies are made, it is difficult to navigate to get them in there. So, like I said, it might be all me. Maybe I just can't figure it out.
No,
but I think some of it has
to do. It's not on you to figure it out. Like
yeah. Well, it is my job. It's technically, literally, my job to figure out how to get programs in.
Yeah, but you're doing what you can do. Like it takes a village. We'll figure it out.
Sure.
That's why we have these conversations on the show. Don't worry.
And let me comment on that. It takes a village to what? Raise a child?
To raise a village.
Right, to raise a village. Thank you, because my man David McNair over there at Cecil Kirk says it takes a village to raise a family because not just the child, the parents need help too.
Yeah, like on all the levels. Denise, it looks like you came off of mute. Did you want to say something?
No.
So David, I wanted to so just real quick, Chap. So if perhaps you had laptops or online virtual like recorded programming, would that be something that that students could, I don't know, benefit from?
If yes, but to even have the kids in the rec center using the computer lab, I've got to get an approved program for computer lab time for an hour, however long the class is, or mention that it's a virtual class, but it's still there's still a process. And right now, I don't know that with the new wave of COVID coming, and we're doing an after school program now. I don't know that they want to take on new programs. I don't know. I don't make those decisions, but that's a feeling I'm getting. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there,
Yeah, but that's a good idea too. Yeah, if we can do virtual stuff for the kids, because a lot of mentorship programs this summer, a lot of it was virtual.
Yeah. I participated in a DENT program, and they do like design learning and design thinking, and all of their stuff was virtual. They did have some in-person stuff if you wanted to, but on a weekly basis, they were training kids through Zoom. So if it's something you all are trying to, willing to try to figure out and apply for funding for, like, let's do it. I think we could totally figure it out. We do this every week. We've been making this happen, right? Blanca, what were you going to say earlier? Do you remember? Nope.
I'm not quite sure if I do, but I can see that the one thing I did want to share that was originally even before coming on is that there are quite a bit. I think that we all can. It's a consensus that there's such talent. There's quite a bit of a stock of talent and willingness, and the connection could be some sort of, not a new group, but even I heard this on the radio this past week, and it was like, did this guy go into my mind? And he was saying exactly what I was thinking, and that is that there is no database. And he said there's because of liability issues and the city and the state and how you promote things and who can be listed. But what I'm thinking of is how, even from this group, I have to look, but I believe the CEO Baltimore Homes reached out to Martin Pollock Project. I believe. I need to check on that. But as soon as your name came up, I believe that I was forwarded an email on the work that you do. And so what I wanted to share is that there is a lot of stock in the talent. There's also a lot that people would like to see. And how do we connect that? And wanted to share how, and it's not to create another project, but how it would be wonderful to have a database of, if you want to volunteer and this is your interest, these are some of the places that you can go and offer that time. Or if you're a individual who is looking for programming that is in the vicinity of either a quadrant where you live, and third is the actual places listed that are looking for funding, because we know ministry, any type of ministry, is costly, but it costs more not to minister. If you know what I mean, ministry is expensive, but it's more costly not to minister. And
Absolutely.
so I wanted to share that, where if there's a place where a volunteer would like to see what's available according to an interest, or where the organizations are listed where we are seeking this kind of funding for this. That's what I wanted to share.
So I'll give you two resources that I have listed Baltimore Homes on. So Collectively is a local organization, and it's spelled interestingly. It's like CLLITVLY, I think. So Collectively is a collection of Baltimore-based organizations. You don't have to be an official 501c3. As long as you're doing good in the community, you can have a page there, and it's free. There's another organization that is nationwide called Volunteer Match, and organizations can list their volunteer opportunities, and volunteers can search for opportunities to participate in. And you can sign up on both. So I'm on both sides. So if there's a big group that maybe they're Habitat for Humanity or something that relates to Baltimore, and I know volunteers have said, hey, we want to, or have you heard of, that's something that I can look for, for this organization. But in both cases, I think Collectively is always free, and Volunteer Match has tiered memberships, and there definitely is a free level membership. Instead of reinventing the wheel and managing one more thing, I think that those are good places to start until we have all the money in the world and can hire all the people to help us manage all the databases.
Okay. Would you be able to share that on the chat? I just Googled it, but I only find that there is a Collectively Inc., but not quite sure if that's actually it. I definitely would appreciate that, and I'm sure others. I mentioned that I'm in AmeriCorps Vista, and I'm a program coordinator for tutoring and mentoring. So we are soliciting volunteers, and there's other people that I believe there are people looking to volunteer, but they're just not quite sure where to find. So that would be great if you could share it, and I would. That's a great connection. That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, that's covering you up, Quida.
Okay.
I do want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I appreciate you guys tonight so much. I'd love to have you guys back on whenever you feel it's necessary. We have something to talk about. Let's get back together and revisit conversations, and Ms. Danitza will make sure you got a good connection so we can hear more from you. Because trust me, guys, she might be shy, but she's got a lot of good things going on and a lot of good things to share, a lot of good perspective to share, because she's out here doing the work with us. So thank you all so much for what you do in the communities. Thank you for staying connected with me and making me look good when we're out there doing stuff, because I couldn't do what I do. Quida couldn't do what she does we couldn't do what we do without each other. So thank you all, and thank you all for your time tonight. Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I hope to meet you in person, both of you.
You sure will.
And I don't know if I have 1 minute, Mr. Chap, to invite you because we have a Latin American Folklore Fest this September 25th. And we are, we want to show you all our culture we have from different countries. And we will have food, art, and many other things. And you are invited. And
And that's at Patterson, yeah?
yeah, it will be in Patterson Park in Pagoda Hill.
September 25th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Yes.
Excellent.
Do you have a flyer?
I have the flyer. I do.
Send it to me and I'll post it.
You got it.
Yes, I have a flyer. I don't know, but I can send it to Mr. Tati.
Yeah, I do have it. I'll give it to her, Danitza. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you.
All right. Yep. Love you guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a great night and have a good week ahead.